everybody, my name is Aaron Challoner, also known as the CHALL, your YouTube vlogger, journalist in sports, and today is the first episode of the Matchday Launch Show, the brand new preview show for League Two and for Doncaster Rovers Football Club. Let's have a look at exactly what's coming up on this week's show. This week I'll be looking at the history of Doncaster's opponents this weekend, Bradford City. I'll be finally revealing which manager will be stepping into the studio to speak on the show. I'll be predicting the opening day fixtures in Sky Bet League 2 this weekend, and I'll be predicting this season's possible table alongside my special guests. This episode is just as exciting as a TikTok post by Lee Tomlin. So we have a lot of things to come on this week's show. By the way, I hope you do like the style of the preview shows. Now, it's very much show-based, and I really hope you do appreciate the work that goes into this, because trust me, there is hours and hours and hours of work on this one video alone. Speaking of hours of work, it's time for the first section of the show where we go back and speak to a former EFL manager or player about their career and also a little bit about this season. So, since it is the season opener, we've got some table predictions which we're going to go on about later in the show. But let's speak to this week's guests, the former Crewe Alexandra manager, David ARTELL. So we've come to our interview section of the brand new, newly branded preview show, and I'm here with former Crewe Alexandra manager, David ARTELL. David, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yourself?
I'm not too bad, not too bad. It's been a good few months since we last saw each other at Crewe. Well, at the game against Crewe at the Eco Park Stadium. It was a good win for us. Unfortunately, it didn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things for both teams. Looking back on that game then, between Donny and Crewe, how would you sort of look back at that period and that whole season for Crewe Alexandra and how tough it was?
Yeah, I think, listen, I could sit here for an hour and tell you how difficult it was. You know, you've got to give yourself the best chance, and we didn't. It's as simple as that. There's no point me, you know, I don't know, being negative, blaming other people. Could I have done things better? Yeah, I could have. Could have things been a bit different with certain things happening? Of course they could. You know, but a club like Crewe is always going to be up against it with the lowest budget in the league. They've always got to overachieve by 4 places just to stay in the league. You know, when you sell 6 players or 5 players into the Championship and your centre half goes and, you know, some backroom staff go, you're not just starting again. You're sort of starting again with everything. So it was always going to be difficult, and that's how it proved. So by the time we come to play Doncaster at the, you know, Eco Power, the writing was pretty much on the wall for both teams, I think.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. So looking ahead then, because obviously, you know, you're out of work at the moment, what's next for David ARTELL? Is there any, have you reached any interview stage with any clubs? Is there any clubs that you may be looking at in the future?
Yeah, I've been a few interviews. I've turned down jobs in the summer. You know, I needed a break. I've been a manager for over 5 years in my first goal, which I think is it's a good first effort. There's not many managers that last over 5 years in the first job. So, you know, I was pleased in that sense, but I felt as though I needed a break, and that's what I took. Like I say, I got offered a couple of jobs, one in England, one abroad. Neither felt right, and actually, I think even if they felt right, I think it was more important that I had a break. I've done a lot of work on myself, writing lots of stuff down, lots of reflection. And, you know, I think anyone who's been in football, you know, I've never done anything different. I left school at 16 and went straight into being an apprentice footballer. I think this time of year, you know, you get excited. The first day of the season, I've said before, it's like Christmas Day for me. So that feeling, you know, have I particularly missed football in this last couple of months? Yes, but not in the sense that I'm desperate to get back. I knew I needed a break. So, you know, I'm sure once the football kicks off tonight, you know, it's Burnley Huddersfield tonight, and then obviously all the games tomorrow, then I'm sure them feelings will come back. So we'll see what happens when silly sacking season starts in 10 games or 15 games. I saw the TNS manager in the Welsh League had gone yesterday because he didn't win in Europe, so Maybe it's even getting earlier.
And obviously, you know, your team, Crewe Alexandra's in League Two this season with Alex Morris in charge. You know, they'll want to try and get back up if they can. How do you think Crewe's going to do this season? Obviously, we'll go into our League Two predictions a little bit later in the preview video today. But how are you sort of thinking the season's going to go for the Railway men?
I think, you know, there's a lot. We had to play a lot of young players last year. You know, we went to Sunderland and played a back three of a 17, 18 and 22-year-old. And we were by far the better team and ended up losing 2-0 with 2 goals in the last 10 minutes. I'm not saying that for a pat on the back. I'm saying that because them kind of players, it will stand them in huge stead for what they're going to face this season. So some of them are already sort of 20 games in. It didn't help last year, but it will help them this year. Do I think they'll get promoted? No, because there's still, you know, quite at the sort of bottom end of the cycle that happens at Crewe. Do I think they'll get relegated? Certainly not. But you know, so I think they'll be in that sort of mid-table experience gathering for a lot of their players. Obviously, they've brought in some experienced lads, which will help. But I don't see them challenging the top of the table, but I do see them, you know, developing the players that need to be developed so that in maybe the season after, or certainly the season after that, they'll have a right good goal near the top of the table, as is always the case at Crewe.
Yeah, I think it's going to be definitely an interesting season for Crewe. Well, David, thank you very, very much for taking part in this interview. Obviously, we've got David's predictions coming up in the League Two table predictions. But for now, let's go on to the next section of the show, looking ahead to Doncaster Rovers' first opponents of the season, Bradford City, and take a look a bit about the history of the Bantams. So this week's opponents are Bradford City, and let's have a look at a little bit of history about the Bantams. The formation of the club took place in 1880, first of all known as Manningham FC, the forerunner of Bradford City AFC. When 1886 arrived, the club opened the Valley Parade Stadium as a rugby union venue, home of Manningham FC. In 1895, Manningham FC founder members of the Northern Union, the Rugby League. In 1903, Manningham FC converted to football from rugby, securing election to the Football League and recruit players for a new team, Bradford City AFC. Bradford City is the only league club in England to wear claret and amber. The colours were inherited upon the conversion of Manningham FC from Northern Union Rugby to soccer in 1903. City's present badge features a bantam sitting atop a shield with the letters BC AFC set against the club's colours. Prior to that, City's badge were based around the club's initials B and C in a graphical style that was en vogue during the early 70s. In 1974, City adopted a contemporary style crest with the boar's head peacefully and very dead resting on top of a shield including the letters BC. This design gave way for the bantam identity of the club, only to be reintroduced at the start of 1985-1986, and this was retained up until the end of 1990 to 1991. Apart from this relatively short period, a bantam has been on the main feature of City's crest since the end of 1981. Saturday, May 11th, 1985, the day that should have gone down in the history books as one of celebration, following 9 months of sweat, tears and toil, which saw Bradford City promoted to the 3rd Division Championship. But as we all know, this turned out to be the day which sent shockwaves around the world, as fire engulfed the antiquated main stand at Valley Parade, eventually taking the lives of 56 loyal supporters. In 2013, they were defeated finalists in the Football League Cup, sponsored at the time by the Capital One, at Wembley by Swansea City. It was one of the most historic seasons the club had ever seen, overcoming Premier League Arsenal, Aston Villa and Wigan Athletic, as well as winning the League Two playoff final at Wembley, beating Northampton Town 3-0. They were relegated back to League Two back in 2019, 2 years after defeat in the League One playoff final at Wembley, a 1-0 defeat for a then Bradford City, managed at at the time by Stuart McCall, against Millwall, managed by Neil Harris. This summer, under Mark Hughes for his first full season as manager, the aim is certainly promotion, having made signings such as new club captain Richie Smallwood from Hull City, experienced Gillingham striker Verdane Oliver, former Rovers and Fleetwood fullback Brad Halliday, and Blackburn attacking player Harry Chapman, and much, much more. Let's see what kind of season awaits the Bantams in 2022-2023. That is the history of Bradford City, and now let's hop back into the League Two predictions overall, and let's have a look at where I think the table will look at come May 2023, along with my special guest predictions, David ARTELL. So it is time for my official table predictions. I know you guys have been waiting for this all week. Obviously still here with the former crew manager David ARTELL. He's going to be giving his table predictions as well. So let's get started with the relegation zone. I've decided to go with Colchester United and Rochdale. I've gone with Rochdale bottom. I think there's been a little bit of off-field issues, quite a bit of off-field issues in the past few months, past 12 months. I think they're one of the most troubled clubs in League Two for me. I do believe that Robbie Stockdale wants to do a good job. However, I do believe that Rochdale could be in trouble. Colchester, I think they pretty much scraped a mid-table finish last season. I think that it's going to be very, very hard for Wayne to get that side going. So I think Colchester will just go down with Rochdale. David, your relegation predictions. Which two teams do you think are going to drop into the Vanarama National League?
I think Colchester and Harrogate.
Ooh. Why Colchester and Harrogate?
I think Colchester are admirable in their approach. You know, Robbie Stockdale, the chairman, has pumped in a lot of money, and has realised it's sort of got him nowhere, I think. And he's now sort of cutting his cloth accordingly. They try and develop young players, and they've been successful at that in the past. However, obviously the pandemic's affected Colchester quite severely. They've obviously got a fairly rookie manager that knows the club in Wayne Brown. I think that he may make mistakes. I'm not sure they've got the strongest squad. They've always been there or thereabouts, and you know, I think they finished 15th last year, which it was an uncomfortable season. You know, I'm just not sure that they'll have enough. So that's Colchester. With Harrogate, you know, I look at them and I think that it could go one of two ways. You know, obviously Simon's done an unbelievable job there. He's been there a long time. They are having to sort of refresh their team. Now they could go from, I'm not sure where they finished last year, but they could go from sort of 19th to 12th quite easily. It's that tight a league. I just fancy that they might go the other way. I'm not sure they're used to being in that scrap, and I know they didn't have a good second half of the season, and I think that might carry on. I think Rochdale might be close as well, I have to say. I just feel that I think they've got a bit more about them, although they've lost quite a lot of their. I think they've lost the sixth highest appearance makers from last season. So that's not a good start at all. So I think it's probably two from them three, really.
Okay, so now the next sort of set of teams is what I like to call the troubled survivors. So my predicted three to be troubled survivors are going from bottom to top out of those three: Stevenage, Harrogate Town and Hartlepool United. Now, Stevenage under Steve Evans, a lot of people predict them to finish much, much higher. I just don't believe the hype around Stevenage, and that's nothing against the club for me, that's nothing against Steve Evans. I know Rovers have a bit of a history with Steve Evans, but for me, I think Stevenage, I just think they'll fall under the expectation from most people. Harrogate Town, I think they will struggle, but I think they will just survive. I think Simon Weaver's still got that belief about the squad. And Hartlepool, under the brand new managerial expertise of Paul Hartley. I think it's going to be a slow start for Paul Hartley. I think he'll build his squad more and more, but I think it's definitely going to be a very much a struggling campaign, especially losing Luke Molyneux to yours truly, Doncaster Rovers. And obviously Omar Bogle turned up for the first couple of months, then sort of turned away for the last few months of the season, then has gone to Newport. So it's obviously going to be a very interesting place around Hartlepool this season. But David, your troubled surviving three teams, your troubled survivors, who would they be?
See, I think one of them will be Barrow.
Okay.
I worry about Barrow. I think one of the big things is that they've got a geographical advantage. You know, it's the same with Plymouth and Exeter. You know, nobody wants to go to them places, lovely places, you know, Lake District and, you know, obviously the Southwest, lovely places. But at the same time, sorry, sorry, there you go. But at the same time, I just see that Barrow and Pete, I like Pete, there's no Pete. I'm not sure they're going to be there or thereabouts. I actually think Hartlepool's going to surprise a few. I don't think they'll struggle. I think they've got a manager who's used to winning, knows what it takes to win. It's a step up from Cove Rangers, that's for sure. But he knows the level. I know their budget's significantly increased, which always helps. So I don't see them struggling. Obviously, we mentioned Rochdale or Harrogate or Colchester being one. I think that it's so tight to predict. I know you've gone for Stevenage. I can't sort of counter that with anything. I can't argue against it. The other one that may be a bit of a surprise, I'm not sure Sutton's going to do as well. In fact, I'm fairly certain Sutton aren't going to do as well because they did ever so well last year. Yeah. I just don't know how much of a drop they're going to be. I think it's probably a bit of a stretch to go from 8th to, 20th or something. But at the same time, I can see them going from 8th to 15th. So, if they don't get off to a good start, they've had their one season bounce, if you like. It becomes a hard drag sometimes, and I haven't seen enough of them to form a truly honest opinion, but they might be the other one, I have to say.
Yeah, so obviously we've got Barrow and Rochdale. If you had to pick one to be one of the three troubled survivors out of those, if you had to pick one.
It's so hard to say. I'm not sure. It's far easier to make them predictions after 6 games.
Yeah.
And I don't want to fall out with any fans and get loads of inbox things, and I'm already sort of dicing with death by sort of saying what I've already said. But I think I'm not sure. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's such a tight league this year. Last year League One was ridiculously strong and League Two wasn't. This year it's more of an even split across all 3 leagues. The Championship was a weak league last year. League One was the strongest league by a distance, whereas this year, the all 3 leagues seem to be a far more even split, and that makes it harder to predict things as well.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. I think let's go into our mid-table teams and then we can sort of digest from there who we think that third troubled survivor is going to be. So first of all, my 6 mid-table teams. Bottom to top, I've gone with Crewe Alexandra. I think Alex Morris, could be a good manager, but I think they're, like you said, they're at the bottom end of this cycle, so I think they're going to start building that process up again and start rising up League 2 year by year. Carlisle United, under Paul Simpson. He was one of the managers rumoured to have been interviewed with us during that New Year Christmas period and could have been our manager when Richie Lowndes was sacked. I've gone with Newport County. I don't think they're going to have as strong a campaign as previous years. I think they are going to struggle a bit. Barrow, I think Pete Well will do a better job than some other people think, but I think they still won't be enough to challenge that sort of top 7, top 10. Then we've got Sutton United. I think it will be a drop-off from last year with the second season syndrome, but I think they'll still achieve a decent mid-table finish. And finally, the first of the promoted sides, Grimsby. I think that You know, Paul Hurst has done a great job with them last season in the National League, and I think that a decent mid-table finish, a higher mid-table finish, will be a good finish for Grimsby this particular season. So, David, who is your 6 mid-table teams?
I think I agree to a large extent. Crewe, Carlisle, Grimsby, Newport. I think Swindon will be in there. I've already mentioned Sutton, so they could be. I think they're probably in there rather than bottom 3. You know, the uncomfortable survivors, if you like. You know, who else was there? There was someone else. Can't remember. What was the other one? Oh, Newport, yes. Newport. I agree with Newport. I think, you know, that first season under James Rowbury, I still can't make them out, if I'm being honest. I've watched them a couple of times, and I think, are they, you know, are they that transitional team where they're trying to play a bit more football? Because obviously, you know, Mike did a great job there with what he had. And then suddenly they had more money with James, which is always interesting. I'm sure if you ever spoke to Mike, he'd tell you the same. You know, and they played a different style, and by and large it was good. But then they've tried for a long time now to try and get in them playoffs and be successful, and they've still never got up. And they've increased the budget, and you go, well, actually, you know, they should be doing a bit better. I think there's obviously a current trend where under 23s managers are taking jobs. It's just a numbers game. This is not a James Rowbury or Newport or any team, any specific team comment. But if you employ 10 under 23s coaches, not all 10 are going to succeed. It's as simple as that. It's just a numbers thing. You know, which one's going to fail? I actually think Crawley will be down there.
Ooh.
In that mid-table somewhere. For that reason, you know, I like Kev. You know, he's done well with Arsenal. He's going to make some rookie mistakes. They've got a big budget. They've obviously signed Dom Telford from Newport. You know, the top scorer in the league last year. So they, you know, Crawley might be in that next group. But I'm going on the fact that when you've got rookie managers, I know James is going into his second year. That you can still. I'm not saying it as if I'm a veteran or anything like that, or I'm a know-it-all. That's not the point. I just worry about some teams and what they might, you know, come a cropper on, if you like. You know, the hill that the manager falls on, if you like. So, you know, I think Newport might be in that middle group, if you like.
Okay, so from that then, I've managed to complete the list of troubled survivors. So we're sort of going with, for you, Rochdale, Barrow and Hartlepool as maybe troubled survivors, and then Sutton, Swindon, Grimsby, Newport, Carlisle and Crewe as your sort of mid-table teams.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. So let's go then into late playoff faders. These are the 6 teams that are going to be up there this season, but just fade away in the last game or two, because obviously it is a very tight league. It's going to get much, much tighter this season. So from bottom to top, I've gone with Tranmere Rovers, Salford City, Leyton Orient, Crawley Town, Gillingham and AFC Wimbledon. 2 of the 4 promoted teams. That does leave relegated teams, sorry. That does leave 1, which I'll go on to in a bit. But Tranmere Rovers, for me, I think they're just not going to have enough to challenge that playoff for a long period of time. Salford, again, rookie manager. They may make mistakes along the way. It's going to be a process. Leyton Orient, our former manager, Richie Wellens, former legendary player. He's still got legendary player status at the club, but as a manager, he will be known as a failure after those first 6 months, despite the conditions he had to work with. But he's got a decent squad at Leyton Orient, so he may mount a challenge before the last few games of the season. Crawley Town, I think, again, rookie manager, could cause rookie mistakes, but he made some good signings. Don Telford, top scorer in League Two last season, so I think it could be a interesting campaign for Crawley. Gillingham, Neil Harris, they haven't got the best squad in the world, they haven't got the most players in the world, but I think Neil Harris, with his experience and his knowledge, I think they could still achieve a decent finish. And finally, AFC Wimbledon under the brand new not caretaker, but permanent managing of the former Charlton caretaker manager and permanent manager Johnny Jackson. So obviously those are my 6 late playoff faders. David, who would you say are the 6 that are going to fade away from those playoff spots?
I think Swindon and Gillingham. I agree with those 2. I don't agree with Tranmere. I think they'll be right up there. Ooh. I think Walsall will be certainly in that. I think Walsall will finish the bottom of that group, if you like. They might even slip into the previous group. I haven't mentioned Stevenage. Stevenage will be similar to Walsall, I feel. And Crawley. I think, is that 6 or 5?
That's 5, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, the other one's Salford.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So Salford's... Oh, hang on. Salford City, Crawley Town, Gillingham, Swindon, Walsall and Stevenage.
Stevenage, yeah.
Wow. Have you got Walsall bottom?
Yeah, probably.
Interesting.
Walsall, Stevenage, Crawley, probably. I think they'll be interchangeable. It's so difficult to do this. Obviously, your Gillingham's. I think Gillingham's season can go one of 2 ways. Again, it's not an easy place to go to. They're going to have a very distinct style with the manager. You're not going to come up against any surprises with Neil. He's a 4-4-2 man. He's get it forward. There's obviously far more subtleties than that, so I don't want him ringing me up either. And he's had success. So I'm just not sure they're going to, like I say, strength in depth. They've just signed a Crawley goalkeeper on loan, Glenn Morris, which will help. So I think they've signed obviously the 2 strikers we had at Crewe, Mikel Mandron, Scott Casquet, target man of running behind. Can they score goals? Yes, they can. I think they'll have enough about them, but maybe just fall short. That's my take on Gillingham, really.
Okay, that's fair enough. So let's get into the really good stuff. So the playoff contenders. So I've first of all gone with Swindon Town. I think that Swindon, for me, I think under Scott Lindsay, yes, it's going to be interesting to see how he does in his first full season as the manager. But for me, I think Swindon could be one of the surprise candidates. I think some people are writing Swindon off maybe a little too early. I think Swindon could still get in there. Next up, I've got Walsall under Michael Flynn. Very knowledgeable, decent EFL manager. Bossed League 2 with Newport in previous years. Still yet to prove it in League 1 level, but maybe Walsall's the club to do that. Then next I've got Northampton Town. I think for me, with Northampton, I think with this being our anniversary year, they've got the experienced Danny Hilton. I think everything seems to maybe fall Northampton's way this season, especially after the heartache of the playoffs and also the heartache of losing their 3rd place spot to Bristol Rovers on that mad final day of the season last season. And then finally, the second of the 2 promoted sides from the Vanarama National League to finish off the playoffs for me, Stockport County. They spent quite a bit of money. The support from the club is amazing. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens with that. So what are you going with for playoff contenders?
Doncaster Rovers.
Ooh.
Leyton Orient. I think they're with the surprise package. I'll come on to them in a minute. Stockport and Wimbledon.
Okay, so why Doncaster Rovers first of all?
I think, I toyed between Doncaster or Wimbledon.
Okay.
That's the truth. So I think Doncaster are going to be there or thereabouts, that's for sure. Again, rookie manager. I like Gary. He's a good guy. They obviously know the stuff, all these people. I'm not taking anything away from them. but he couldn't make or not make a substitution when it's all that, that kind of thing. You just don't know. It costs them 2 points, and that's the difference over the course of the season. It's that kind of thing that I always worry about. When I'm trying to do these things. Again, I'm not Gary Sheffield bashing, and please, all your mates, don't ring me up saying you've said I'm going to get promoted. I've got to say something. I think Wimbledon's the same. Johnny didn't do a particularly great job at Charlton. Fairly difficult circumstances with stuff that were going on behind the scenes. And I think one of them two will get promoted again. Maybe both of them. One automatically, one through the playoffs. I think. I don't know which way round is the truth. I think Stockport will be in there. I think they'll be strong again. They're spending fortunes, like money's going out of fashion. And I think the dark horse will be Leighton Orient. I know I might upset some Doncaster fans here, but Rich is a good manager. He knows what it takes. He's signed some good players. He'll have a good team spirit. And when things are suitable to allow him to just manage and not have to worry about other things, then he can do that. They've signed some good players, Leighton Orient, and it's one of them grounds that's a tight ground, a good atmosphere, passionate fans. I know fans are passionate, but they feel right on top of you, and that ground can get rocking. It's proper East End, kind of place that it's not an easy place to go to, and he'll have them playing good stuff.
Absolutely. So that leaves us with the 3 automatic promotion places. I've gone 3rd place, Doncaster Rovers, and the reason why, and I think a lot of people may disagree, a lot of people may agree. Doncaster Rovers, for me, everything's gone right for them this summer. They've changed the backroom staff, they've changed the football structure, so it's no longer the people that are not football people making football decisions. Actual footballing brains are making football decisions now, which is fantastic. James Coppinger obviously leading that new team, new staff behind the scenes, new staff on the pitch, brand new signings that have been top draw for me. We've just signed a new 18-year-old on a new 2-year deal with an option for an extra year, so that's another long-term project signing in the bank. And yeah, in pre-season, unbeaten. I know pre-season doesn't mean much, but it's all about fitness at the end of the day. But for me, going unbeaten in pre-season, having that momentum towards the end of last season, I think has been key for us. In 2nd place, I've gone with Nigel Clough and Mansfield Town. I think they're going to have an exceptional season. I think this year will finally be their year to get back into League One. And then finally, as champions, for me, there was only one choice for me, and that was Bradford City. I think Mark Hughes is going to absolutely... I think Mark Hughes is an interesting one, because I think even though he's not really managed in League Two before, I think that Bradford will still come out of this with an exceptional season. I think this year is their year to go back up, if you know what I mean. So I've gone with Bradford, Mansfield and Doncaster Rovers in that order, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So finally then, David, who is your 3 to go up automatically?
I've gone for Bradford for the reason you outlined, really. Obviously they've got a vastly experienced manager, but more so I think they've signed some really experienced players, Richie Smallwood, people like that. Obviously Verdane Oliver, he scores goals at League Two level. I don't think Mark Hughes is going to play particularly attractive football, but I think it's going to be effective football. They have got a bit of guile with Harry Chapman, well, Blackburn, although he's been hit and miss, but he's been playing Championship and League One football at Shrewsbury and places like that. So he should find League Two okay. So I think Bradford will have enough. Mansfield, I think, again, I agree with what you said. I think Nigel Clough has been building, and I think this will be their year. I think they're unfortunate to miss out last year, really. But I think the winners of who's going to win the league will be Northampton. I think they are a strong team. They just missed out last year on that final day. And I think they'll come, and I think they'll be the ones that actually storm the league. I think they've made some real good signings. They've signed the boy from Blackburn, Arwood Bellis. he'll be a good addition. You know, what I've seen, I think they'll be the strongest. Again, do I think it'll be pretty football? Do I think they'll play the way? No, I think they'll be really effective. So that's my top three.
David ARTELL, it's been an absolute honour. We'll have to try and get you back on at the end of the season to predict the playoffs, but it's been an absolute honour, mate. Thank you very much. So there we go. That was David ARTELL's predictions for the table and my predictions for the table. I want to say a huge thank you to David ARTELL for coming on the show. Such an amazing guest, and it was great to get so many more players and managers weekly on these shows. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the show at the end of the video, so stay tuned for more details about the show and how it's going to work weekly. But let's go into our next section of the show, which is the opening day predictions for the season, for the season opener, the season opening weekend. So let's start with our first game, AFC Wimbledon hosting Gillingham. Now, this one is a very interesting one. AFC Wimbledon, managed by Johnny Jackson, is a very interesting proposition. Let's see how they do this season. They've made some decent signings. Gillingham, Neil Harris, very thin squad to work with to start off with. He's bulked it up a little bit. Still need a few more signings here and there. They know they need signings. They did announce a couple of signings today, including Glenn Morris, as David ARTELL said, a very experienced goalkeeper, who is of course known to the club. So it should be interesting to see what Gillingham do this season. My prediction for the scoreline is AFC Wimbledon 2, Gillingham 1. Next up, Carlisle United host Crawley Town, and Carlisle United will be hoping for a great season under Paul Simpson, while Crawley Town under Kevin Betsy's management will be hoping for a chance to bounce up to League One in their bid under brand new ownership. In this game, however, I think it's going to be a draw. I'm going to go for Carlisle United 1, Crawley Town 1. Next up, Harrogate Town and Swindon Town. Now, Harrogate under Simon Weaver could be in for a struggling campaign. However, the belief amongst the Harrogate fans could be that they will stay up this year. As for Swindon Town, under the management of Scott Lindsay, will be definitely interesting to see if they can try and get into the playoff positions. I've gone for Harrogate Town 0, Swindon Town 2. Next up, Leyton Orient host Grimsby Town. Leyton Orient's first full campaign under new manager Richie Wellings, the former Doncaster Rovers, Salford and Swindon boss. They'll be hoping for a decent season. They've got some brilliant signings, George Moncur being one of them from Hull City. Now, Grimsby Town, promoted from the Vanarama National League under manager Paul Hurst, have brought in some fantastic players and kept some wonderful talent from last season. However, I don't think that'll be enough for the opening day. I'm saying Leyton Orient 2, Grimsby Town 1. Next up, Northampton Town host Colchester United. It's the anniversary season for Northampton with the experience of Danny Hilton. Despite the loss of Fraser Horsfall, the defender to Stockport, I think that Brady is going to get his Northampton side up and running. Colchester could be in for a very struggling campaign under Wayne for me. So for me, the scoreline will be Northampton Town 2, Colchester United 0. Next up, Rochdale host Crewe, and Crewe under Alex Morris is at the back end of the cycle of their rebuilding process in League 2, while Rochdale could also be in for a struggling campaign under Robbie Stockdale. This says stalemate all over it. Rochdale 0, Crewe Alexandra 0. Next up, Salford City host Mansfield Town, and Mansfield Town want to put the playoff heartache to bed by Nigel Clough getting his already fit and able squad from last season, along with a couple of new additions, ready to travel to Salford under their new manager, the former Man United Academy manager, Neil Wood. I'm going Salford City 0, Mansfield Town 2 in this particular scoreline. Next up, Stockport County host Barrow in their first game back in the Football League. Stockport County under Dave Challoner. I'm not just saying it because we share the same surname, but spelt differently a little bit. But Dave Challoner's Stockport County looked like a side built for a promotion charge. Barrow under Pete Wilder definitely, in my opinion, embarking on a brand new era. It's going to take time. It won't be a playoff contention campaign for Barrow this year, but I don't think there'll be any danger. But for me, this has Stockport written all over it with the atmosphere, the occasion, the day in general. I think this has Stockport written all over it. And no offence to Barrow, I do think you'll still have a good season. But on this particular day, Stockport County 3, Barrow 0. Next up, Sutton United and Newport County, two teams who were quite in the top 10 last season, but in my opinion could struggle this year. But for me, I think Sutton will edge it. Sutton United 2, Newport County 0. Next up, Tranmere Rovers hosting Stevenage. I think a lot of people predict them to finish very, very highly under Steve Evans, but I think the hype and the expectation could pressure some of those players. For Tranmere Rovers, on the other hand, it's quite the opposite. Expects to be amongst that top 10, but I don't think they'll be challenging for a playoff place this year. Tranmere Rovers 1, Stevenage 1 for me. And finally, Walsall against Hartlepool at Walsall. Now, Michael Flynn's got a very nice record in League 2, especially with Newport. For me, I think Michael Flynn's got a decent side to work with there. Hartlepool under new manager Paul Hartley will definitely be up for an interesting campaign, but I think this has a Walsall win all over it. Walsall 2, Hartlepool 0. So that is my opening day predictions, but we are missing one particular scoreline. That's right, Valley Parade, Bradford City against Doncaster Rovers. Before we get into my scoreline prediction, let's have a look at my lineup prediction. So first of all, in goal, I've got Jonathan Mitchell. Now, Jonathan Mitchell, for me, he wears the number 1 shirt. He will wear it with pride. He's a great shot stopper. His distribution did need work for pre-season. I've seen glimpses of improvement in his distribution in pre-season. Hopefully that continues as the season goes forward. So in goal for me is Jonathan Mitchell. In the back 4, we've got our brand new left back, number 3, James Maxwell. In the centre back pairing, I've gone with Joseph Olowu and Roshawn Williams. I was tempted between Williams and Younger, but I think Williams for me has shown some improvement in pre-season on the things he needs to be improving on. So for me, I think Williams deserves a chance to start with Olowu, and I think Carl Noel being fit again for this Saturday at right back is obviously very, very key in that position. Ollie Younger would have probably played in that position if Noel wasn't fit, but Noel is available for selection. He is fit for tomorrow, so that is very, very good stuff. The midfield is where it gets interesting. Lee Tomlin is at a race against time to be fit. We know that Molyneux as well, who can play on the wings, mate, well, is mainly a winger. But Molyneux and Tomlin, I think Molyneux won't be fit. Tomlin's at a race against time. Rio up front's going to be out for potentially 2 months, as said by Andy Gittins on social media this past week. So I think it's going to be very interesting in the midfield and the attack. But in the midfield, I've gone with this. Adam Clayton as the deep line playmaker. In front of him as box-to-box midfielders, so running behind and in front, I've gone with Harrison Biggins on the right and Liam Ravenhill on the left. Now, the reason why I've gone with Liam Ravenhill is because I believe personally this is his opportunity in the league to shine, and the reason why we haven't loaned him out. I believe that this is a real opportunity for Liam Ravenhill to show what he can do in the first team. This is going to be his potentially breakthrough year, and a lot of people have said this pre-season, and I agree with them, that this season could be Liam Ravenhill's year to finally start breaking through into that first team. So I've gone with Ravenhill and Biggins in front of Clayton in that midfield 3. And finally, the attacking 3. As I said, Molyneux won't be fit. Rio's out for 2 months, potentially. And Tomlin's in a race against time as well. You can also play on the wing as well. But this is what I've gone with. I've gone with Carl Hurst as the right winger. I've gone with Tommy Rowe as the left winger and George Miller up front. I think Tommy Rowe on that left wing could be a really great asset. Carl Hurst showed in pre-season that he's a very strong player. He's a nice pacey winger. I think he's got potential to be great long-term. Him on that right-hand side would be great. And then the man who scored 6 in 6 in pre-season, George Miller, number 9, leading the line up front. In terms of bench options, obviously you've got Jones as your backup keeper. I'd expect Younger to be on there. I'd expect Seaman to be on there. Agon I'd expect to be on there as well. I think potentially De Grucci will be an option on the bench as well with the injuries that we've got at the moment. Josh Andrews obviously as well. And in terms of the centre of midfield, I think it's going to be interesting to see who we would include on the bench. So overall, that is my team. Let's go into my scoreline prediction to end the video. So let's get into my scoreline prediction for the final game of the opening weekend. Bradford City hosting Doncaster Rovers. Now, I'm not going to discount or discredit Bradford any way possible. But I just think, even though we've got a couple of big injuries and a few long-term ones we've had since pre-season, for me, I feel like we can do a job on Bradford. And this is not, trust me, this is nothing against Bradford City. You're a great, great club. You've got a top-class manager, and you're going to be up there this season. I predict you will be up there this season. I just think on this particular day, I think Rovers could do something against Bradford. I think we've shown in I know pre-season, people say it doesn't mean a lot. It's about fitness at the end of the day. But look at it this way. We took some good form towards the end of last season in the last few games. Unbeaten in pre-season. Take all of that. The squad feels like it's on an all-time high right now. Take that into the league and you never know what could happen. You could fall flat on your face, or you could thrive on what you've done the back end of last season and in pre-season. So for me, I think Rovers take the better form going into the season opener. I'm going to predict a 2-0 Doncaster Rovers win. And the reason why I'm doing that is because Miller's been scoring well at the moment. I think Kyle Hurst's a nice-looking young player. I think that Liam Ravenhill will get his breakthrough. I think James Maxwell's an exceptional left-back, a really good signing for us, especially with the late interest from Rochdale and Reading and many other clubs. Mitchell, for me, I think could keep a clean sheet. I think that's nothing again. It's nothing against Bradford's players or anything like that. I just think Mitchell will have one of those days where I think he's at his best. So, for me, I think we're going to go with a 2-0 win for Doncaster Rovers, and I'm really confident about this one. So, hopefully we do well. Hopefully we do get the 3 points, and let's go. Let's start this season on a high. Let's go. Let's get pumping. Let's get this season off with a bang, and let's get firing up that table as soon as possible. But that is going to be it for this episode, the debut episode of the EFL League 2 Matchday Launch Show. I hope you like the brand new preview videos and the style of the preview videos. Now, I know what you're thinking. Is this just going to be Saturdays, or is it going to be the Tuesdays as well? I will attempt to do these kind of shows on the Tuesday as well. It may be that I have to do a Doncaster Rovers and just do one of the normal previews for the midweek games and leave the big ones for the Saturdays. I don't know yet. It depends what I can sort quick enough for the midweek ones. So, as I said, there's a lot of contacts to be made, a lot of reaching out to do to get guests onto the show. Like I said, a massive shout out to David ARTELL for getting on the show today. Really does mean a lot. Thank you very much, David. Obviously, like I said in the video today, hopefully we're getting back for the playoffs. Get a few people back from the show for the playoffs. So looking forward to all of that. But for now, guys, I am the CHALL, aka Aaron Chalner, your YouTube sports presenter and vlogger journalist. Thank you very much. Hope you have a wonderful day. Rovers till I die, and that is full time.